Today I want to share with you an approach to mastering accounting, how to go about to study accounting. This is a approach. I'm not saying it's the approach. It's a approach to consider. So important part of the approach I'm suggesting is to create a narrative. In other words, a story, and even better if you can visualize the story for each broad topic. I'm going to use fixed assets as a topic. Okay, so it's about creating a narrative for your broad topic. Then it might be important to communicate this narrative or the story that you created to your fellow learners. By telling the story, it will really become part of you, and your fellow learners are also able to fill the missing gaps, parts of your story that maybe are not complete. They can fill in, or even they can detect some inaccuracies, and they can even obtain ideas how to improve their own story. So in creating this narrative or story, important part is to know the main definitions. So for example, if we take fixed assets as our topic, it's firstly important to know what is an asset. And we know an asset is that which the business owns. In other words, it's the property of the business. Okay, the next question is to ask, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of fixed assets? Well, we know the purpose is to help the business to generate an income. So we also need to know what are the sequence of procedures that are carried out in practice relating to, for example, fixed assets. So one can envision that fixed assets are worth a lot of money. It has a lot of value. So one are not just going to buy fixed assets on the spur of the moment. You will probably do some planning and studying. You determine, you will get quotes from various suppliers to get the best price and quality, and since assets are very valuable, management probably will have to make a decision and approve it. So we can already see there are some internal control procedures related to the story that we added into this story. So once approval is granted, then we will have, and the transaction occurred, we will have to record the transaction in our books. So it will now depend whether we purchase on cash or by credit, or if the owner supplied the asset, which book offers entry will be used. And after that, we will have to post to the ledger accounts. Okay, so I think you get the idea. We have to know what the sequence of procedures are in practice, and then we also have to understand the structure of any relating ledger accounts or notes or financial statements. For example, when we look at assets, we should know that our asset accounts have debit balances, because assets by definition increase on the debit side, and so we are basically using structure here which is built on the basic accounting equation. Okay, when we think of structure, you always need to think of equations, because most of what is in accounting is nothing other than equation. As I've often said, to a large degree, accounting is simply a very specific form of mathematics. So also, like when it comes to fixed assets, for example, you will have to know the structure of your notes for fixed assets, that you start with the carrying value at the beginning of the financial year, which is the costs minus accumulated depreciation at the beginning of the year. Then you need to consider the movements during the year, namely additions, depreciation that reduce the value of assets during the year, disposal of assets, which also reduce our value because we don't have those assets anymore. And then if we consider those movements, we get to the carrying value at the end of the year, which again is just cost price minus accumulated depreciation. So we have various accounting equations or equations that are kicking in on that level. So you need to know also how everything relates in those structures. For example, to get to the carrying value at the end of the year, you start with the carrying value at the beginning of the financial year. Then you add any additions, and then you will have to subtract the depreciation, as that reduce the carrying value or what your assets are worth. And then also your disposals at carrying value, you will have to subtract that, because again, if we get rid of stuff, it reduces what our assets are worth to us. That will give you the carrying value at the end of the financial year. So that's just one example of that, specifically to fixed assets. And then there are certain stuff that you simply will have to study. You cannot get away from that, especially if you think of things like topics like ethics and internal controls. It also helps to try and envision yourself in a business situation and to think from that perspective instead of just thinking facts. You need to kind of live yourself into a real situation, which is kind of hard because you're not necessarily exposed to such a scenario of what actually happens in reality if you are in a business environment. So given that last point of there are certain stuff that you simply have to study, I want to focus on characteristics that is a prerequisite for mastering accounting. We refer here to being before becoming. That's the classical approach to education, and part of why I believe Eastern countries are doing the best currently in education and educational performance is because they really focus on this. They first build character in the early stages before focusing on skills. Skills as more relate to becoming. Having character is more related to being. Who are you? So being is who are you. Becoming is what do you do? And who you are is of more fundamental importance than what you do. So here we know accountability is part and parcel of the definition of accounting. So you have to be accountable not only to others but also to yourself. So you have to take responsibility. In order to be responsible, you're able to respond. So you are proactive mostly rather than reactive. You are confident that your future depends mostly on yourself, not on other people. So to a great extent, your success will probably depend 95% on you and only a small portion on your teacher. Independence and objectivity, also very familiar accounting terminology. To be independent is to be able to look at something from your own perspective, and objective often relates to taking out the emotions out of the equation, to look at things as they really are, to actually sometimes take yourself away from all the noise, and thereby also focusing on being independent, not influenced by others. So that independence again connects to accountability, in that you are solely responsible for what success you will make of accounting. Transparency, also familiar accounting terminology. To be transparent is to basically to see through. So from there the word transparent that in the old days we used on the projectors. You can see right through the transparent. So be transparent in terms of your approach to accounting. Be honest in terms of how much time you spent on your accounting, what activities you are doing, what effort you are putting in. In other words, be true to yourself. Don't pretend. There's no use in pretending to be something that you are not. So integrity is here of importance. Prudence. We know in accounting prudence means we have a conservative approach. So when you have to study for a test, rather think conservatively that probably I need more practice than what I think I need. Probably I need to do more activities than I think I may need to do. I probably have to work faster than I am used to. Okay, so it's kind of approach of always expecting that you are less prepared than you actually should be. Then dedication. Speaking of being prepared, your attitude, your motivation, that will also help you with your dedication. Why are you doing accounting? Why do you want to master it? That will be the driving forces. Discipline closely relates to dedication. If you can find a reason for doing something, it will make it easier for you to be disciplined. You cannot be successful in accounting without being disciplined, which includes being focused. You need to focus each and every class, which also requires the necessary discipline. So I encourage you to work on becoming somebody that grow in these characteristics, because I would say that is the starting point for success in the subject field. I hope this helps you to a certain degree.